The last stanza of another season of discontent.
Pretty disappointed. Yeah.
How would you sum up the season this year for this team?
It was bad, but we can only get better.
What do you think went wrong?
I don't think the coaching staff gets the team
coaching
fired
scheme.
up to play.
Against a so-called bitter rival.
Commanders all day. Let's go.
Do you believe that?
The game went about as expected, and now changes, expected as well, are underway. Ron Rivera, no longer the head coach.
I like Ron, and I think he was a great hire during the time. He dealt with all the nonsense, stuff that we had to go through. But I feel like at some point he lost his spark as a coach, and he need to move on, that's all.
Question is, who will replace him? What about the quarterback position? The question hanging over Washington for so long is still in the air. Discussing what promises to be another wild offseason in Washington.
One at GAM that knows what he's doing, or her. There's one in Cleveland that looks pretty good. Either one.
Yeah, and I just made my first payment on next year's ticket, so I'm hopeful.
We must get better, and I'm praying on it, and I just really, really, really hope that they look and listen to what their lessons been.
Once again, the winning buses lead.
And getting ready for the NFL postseason on this Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus.
The man
Call somebody,
is back,
call
y'all.
somebody.
We're
He's
back.
back. Call
He's
your
back.
mama, call your
We're
daddy.
back and we're back.
We're back.
Tony McGee,
back, y'all.
We're back. Tony
Hey.
McGee. Come on.
Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee, Pro Football Plus. Tony McGee. What's up?
We appreciate Ron's efforts and everything he did for the franchise. I mean, obviously he came here during a tumultuous time period, the ownership change, and he really added leadership. But clearly, we weren't good enough this year. We didn't get it done on the field, and so we've decided to go into a new direction. Though this season was hard for me and hard for us. It's hard to win 4 games. From my point of view, we are coming out of this with poised for a great future. A lot of draft capital, a lot of cap space, and I'm lucky enough to be supported by an amazing ownership group. And obviously, we think we're an attractive destination for the next generation of leadership. And so, this is probably amongst the most important jobs I have as a managing partner. And it's important that I do this personally and get this right, and that we bring in the right leadership.
Welcome to Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. This has been a very difficult week, not only for the fans, but for the organization. And, my father had a saying, when you build your home on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, I can but tell you it's folly, but will not be responsible for the eruption that washes you away. And that's what happened. The coach got washed away today. Everybody told him. On this show alone, Alex said at least 10 times, change the quarterback, man. Give yourself a chance. I don't know why he didn't do that, but we went into this season feeling that we had one of the best teams, not only in the East, but in the NFL. We ended up with one of the 3 worst. So right now it's going to be a lot of changes. And I brought in some changes up here. As you know, Big G wasn't here last week, so we got to say him first. Gary, welcome back. How was Hawaii? Was it okay? How was Hawaii, man?
I was cleaning your boat. I was cleaning your boat, Mr. McGee. You have a 110-footer, so it takes at least 3 days to 4 days to get that done.
Well, we didn't know if he was going to be here, so we brought back a quarterback, Jason Campbell, the man that called me Shaft's daddy, Solomon. You know what he called me, Shaft Daddy. You gonna go with that, or you gonna have a talk with him?
Hey, we kind of had a talk, Dad, in every show. You had the all black on. It's a little bit of resemblance, but
Oh, you okay? You in that camp, Alex? You the one kept saying over and over again change the quarterback. And you know, you lose 8 games in the end when you had a chance to go. Don't you think it was time that they would think about that? Or was this already conceived that they were going to be fired anyway?
Well, I thought they should have changed just because give somebody else a chance. I know they weren't really trying to win games, supposedly because of draft positioning. They did change, but then when Brissett had this injury to the hamstring, he never played again. So as it turns out, they changed the quarterback and never changed the quarterback. That probably only happens in Washington, Tony. But here we are, 17 games worth of Sam Howell. Quarterback for the last 25 years has been a question mark for the most part in this city. And it's
the
still
only thing they had stable here was a defensive end. He wore 78. Oh, I don't know who that was. Donna, let me ask you this, Donna. You talk to the big guy. You don't know yet if they're going after a quarterback or not. If you got the number 2 pick in the draft, you got a quarterback that leads the league in interceptions and being sacked. Do you even not consider getting that quarterback or a quarterback in that second pick?
Well, yeah, I think Jason is the person to talk about the quarterback situation, but I think you have to keep everything wide open with this Commanders team, as Josh Harris said, as he's putting together the advisory committee to consider looking at the head person of personnel and the head coach. So, Tony, I think with this Commanders team, it's so many different holes. And one thing that Ron Rivera said that I will agree with, he said that had he had a quarterback, although he contradicted himself a little bit, because he said that with Sam Howell going into the season, he thought he had found his quarterback. And then a week ago, he said that if he had an Alex Smith, when Gruden was here, he may not even be the head coach of the Commanders, being that they probably had that quarterback. So I think you always have to consider, do you have the right quarterback? And a team, to me, operates, you know, they say they give them so much credit, but you do need a quarterback. You look at the other teams in the playoffs, they have solid quarterbacks. So I think that you consider that. But Tony, you know me, I'm one of those people still. I know with the number 1 pick, the Commanders may want to move down because I know there's some offensive linemen, and you know, even if you get a quarterback, you need offensive linemen. But you have to consider that because it's 4 quarterbacks out there, Tony, that this is a great draft for picking a quarterback. And I'll let Jason talk a little bit more on that because he's the expert there, Tony.
Yeah, Jason, let me ask G this question first. G, we can talk about the offense, we can talk about the quarterback and everything, but you do have a wide receiver, Terry, 4 years, 1,000 yards. You got to give your dap to that young man. In that phase, the quarterback did do well.
Yeah, I mean, they got some great receivers, and Terry McLaurin, I think he's one of the best receivers in the league, if not the best. I mean, he does everything well. He blocks well, he catches well. He has something like a 95% touch rate. If he touches the ball, he catches it 95% of the time, and that's pretty incredible by itself. But in terms of in terms of the quarterback, I mean, again, I've always said they get too much blame and they get too much credit. I mean, you get sacked more than 60 times in a season, and you still score 24 to 30 points a lot of times in a lot of games. To me, our defense is the problem. Our defense is just they haven't been studied over. I mean, they were supposed to be the best part of the football team. Quite honestly, they was the worst part of the football team.
Exactly.
So if I score 24 points, I'm supposed to win, period. That's what it is. If I score 24 points, I'm supposed to win. I'm not supposed to lose. Don't get me wrong. In the later part of the season, everybody played bad, you know. But the biggest problem is once you saw the end of the game, you saw all those players still on the field hugging and kissing. Oh my God. That's the biggest problem right there. I mean,
so they were hugging and kissing her, baby.
Hey, Gary, Ron Rivera had to go grab the players off the field to get them in the locker room.
I mean, you're right. They were so happy that the season was over. You know, I knew it was a few.
They've been that way for every game they lost, though. Every game they lost, they've done that.
I know it. That's the new way they do around the league. Solomon, when you was coming up in there, I know you had to smell the cars with the gasoline running because they had their engines running, waiting for that game to be over. See, we couldn't do that when I played. We didn't make enough money to let our engines run, but those engines were running. Those boys looked like they just gave it up. They played the first part of the first quarter, maybe a little bit of second. Then they looked like they just let it go.
I'm just not going to say no names and just some numbers, but I saw an offensive lineman that wears number 72. He didn't even play, and he had a shirt look like it was kind of cold out that day. He had a shirt look like he was about to head to Miami. So I actually feel like they were ready for this to be over with, Pops. As much as we thought we were going to go in and be able to maybe make it tough for the Cowboys, they were actually, I saw some shirts that look like you don't look like you about to get back in your car. You look like you about to get on an airplane or a boat soon. So I want to say they were kind of excited for it to be over with. And I'm gonna be honest, it's been just a drain. I was even just just looking at the media and the whole persona of the stadium. Even the media, even you guys, including you, Pop, every week you guys got to get on and try to explain something that can't be explained. That gets tiring also. So I felt like everybody, including the players, everybody was pretty much ready for it to end yesterday, but definitely the players, Pops. I did see a couple nice little shirts on that looked like they were about to board a plane, not opposed to get in a car.
Oh,
Hey,
they were
Solomon,
going.
Solomon, that 72 probably won't be back next year.
Yeah, but
Don't
you know
worry,
what they were
don't
doing?
worry. The outfit he had on looked like he was about to go take a couple visits. So
Well, you know what they were doing, Big Solomon? If they had on Hawaii shirts, they were going to pick up Gary's luggage and get him back here for the show. They were just waiting for that. But Jason, let me ask you this. Okay, you general manager now. I know you played quarterback, and you know if you got hit 60 times and sacked 60 times, would you look for an offensive lineman if you were him? If you were the general manager, would you get a quarterback with that second pick?
Well, only if you feel like that quarterback is a lock. What I mean by that is the game is still won inside out. You still got to have protection up front. The best thing about this scenario is that you have a couple quarterbacks in this draft that can you really say the number 2 quarterback is better than the number 4 quarterback. And so you could actually trade that pick if you wanted to and pick up 2 picks in the first round and have an opportunity to draft like a Michael Penix at quarterback, maybe not at number 2, but somewhere in the middle of the first round. And then you still have opportunity to pick up one of those big offensive linemen that's out there to kind of shear up your offensive line. There's some good linemen in the draft as well. And because you mentioned quarterback, Washington have had some quarterbacks I feel like that could have been, some real quarterbacks to help this franchise, but you got to build this whole thing around some of these guys. And, for most of the years, it's always easy shot to blame the quarterback a lot of times, or, like Coach Rivera saying, hey, if I had this quarterback or whatever, you trying to take blame off yourself. Like, this is under you. This is your leadership. Out of 4 years, you never had a winning season. And then not only that, you went through a couple of quarterbacks, but you're supposed to be a defensive guy and a defensive head coach. So the fact that your defense was the one struggling over the last 2 years more so than the offense. So who's pointing the blame at who? I think that's part of the problem is there's always a lot of blame going around instead of a lot of togetherness. And these guys trying to find out, hey, are we a close brotherhood, or we just caught up into the ambience of what it is in Washington, D.C., because there is a lot of things to do in the D.C. area. But a lot of this is being locked in. It's no different now than a lot of these college kids making NIL money. They talk more about their money than they do about, going out and playing the game. And
that's the bottom line.
And that's
hey,
the same.
Jason, you just spoke music to my ear. Trading down, getting a quarterback later, and then picking offensive linemen, because this is the draft for offensive linemen if you're going to go after anybody, because I have a list of 5 top offensive linemen, and all for the 10 years plus, they have been missing offensive linemen, and they're going to.
Yeah, but Donna, the second pick, you can't use the second pick.
No, I'm talking about trading down, like Jason just said.
Okay.
He gave you the recipe. Trade down, and you're still able to get a good quarterback. But like Jason said, for years, if you don't build, and Tony, I can't believe you even saying this. You said that build the line, the defensive line, offensive line. That's what you've been saying all year long. And then you build everything around. And that's what Jason just said. The formula for this team is they've got to build that offensive line, because it doesn't matter who's going to be the quarterback. So, Tony, they're loaded. This is the year that draft picks, this team has a lot of draft picks. So they're in good shape. So they don't necessarily have to take that second pick. They can trade down. So, Jason, thanks for bringing some education here for Tony.
Alex, I waited to the end because I knew Donna would be talking like she's out of her mind. I don't know what's happening with it, but
Jason must be out of his mind
quarterback
too.
play. You know they got the second pick, Alex. You are the general manager. Do you go after? Do you take a chance? Do you draft a lineman too high when you can get a quarterback of the future that is really the quarterback?
Tony, I lean that way. I understand what Jason and Donna are saying. But if it's Caleb Williams or if they loved him and you get the sense that this is a once every however many year quarterback prospect, listen, nothing's a sure thing. I mean, Ryan Leaf was taken second overall. He never played. So Tony Mandarich, offensive line back in the day, I'm dating myself. He never played. I mean, he was supposed to be great. This is all an inexact science. But when a Caleb Williams or maybe this fellow at UNC, Drake May, and all these experts say that they are both sort of franchise-changing guys, and one of them is going to be there. And it's hard to pass that up because you got to have one of those guys. Now, are they definitely going to be the guy? No. RG3 may have been that guy if he didn't get hurt. Jason Campbell's a really good quarterback. He didn't have the pieces around him that I'm sure he could have benefited from, and probably coaching changes and offensive coordinators changing every 10 minutes. It is an inexact science. But when one of those dudes is hanging there and you got the second pick, it's hard to say we're going to do the smart thing and we're going to trade back and hope Penix is there at 14 or hope Jaden Daniels is there, the fellow from LSU, is there at 23. Sometimes you got to go get one of those guys. Every team still playing has one of those guys.
Thank you.
Sorry, Donna. Sorry,
hey, you and Tony is hanging on that, but me and Jason is still saying they need help in so many other spots. Go ahead, help me out, Jason. Help me out, Jason.
I'm just saying this. Bryce Young supposed to have been a quote unquote this big time quarterback, but you put him in Carolina with no receivers and no offensive line, and you get him beat up. But you look at CJ Stroud. They brought in a defensive head coach. He beefed that defense up. He got a good offensive line. He got a Pro Bowl left tackle. And what happened with CJ? He got really good receivers, and now they're in the playoffs. So, it's just all about where do you feel like, because you can go draft a Drake May or a Caleb Williams, but if he gets his tail knocked off and then he loses his confidence, you right back.
Gun shy at the word. We're going to take a little break right now. But with Solomon, I know you probably think I haven't come to you, but I want to come back with you because fans, we're not just talking about the offense here. The defense stinks a little bit too. A whole lot, if you want to ask me. So when I come back, I'm going to ask that big fella on the end, would you get rid of one of the two big guys in the middle to strengthen your line? We'll be back in a moment.
Next.
It was definitely, challenges for all of us. You know what I mean? I just won't put that all on myself. Everybody was dealing with something this season, whether it's physically, mentally, the ups and downs of an NFL season. But I just want to speak more to the guys that we have in this locker room who really, no matter, we haven't won in, 2 months, but we came in here with energy each and every day to practice. We love playing with one another, and we play hard to the final whistle. And sometimes that doesn't amount to wins and losses, and we know that. We fell short with that. And but the character of the guys in this locker room was really strong, and that's definitely something that's going to be missed. But I think we just got to find a way to take the next step if we want to compete with the best teams in this league.
What was the missing pieces this year? If you could put your finger on something, what went wrong?
Just couldn't finish games. I feel like we had a lot of close games. Just somewhere in the game, we let it go.
Well, I think we had our ups and downs with them. I might be the only one to say it, but I think we had our ups and downs. We had some good, we had some bad. It's one of those things where something new comes in after you've been used to something else for a couple of years, and so sometimes you can bat heads, but I respect them for coming to work every day. And being the same person every day. So, if you have a person who comes in and be the same person, you can get on board with that.
How close is this team to being together, or is it a lot of missing pieces? You've been with various other teams. How do you see other teams versus when you look at this team and how close they are to moving or turning the pages?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I think from a playing standpoint, you gotta just get, gotta take advantage of situations in the game. I feel like the whole season we didn't do that. So if you look back, we lost a lot of close games, and I think number two, just being on other teams, like being in Buffalo last year, just kind of getting that culture built and getting that culture right. And obviously, I think in my opinion that starts from the top. So that stuff way above my pay grade, but I think that's where it starts, and then it trickles down. Obviously, you get the coach and get the right players in that know how to build that culture, and I think that's when things can start to turn around.
But personally, like for me, is to kind of like on a daily basis just remind myself of this feeling. Personally, I'm very disappointed at how this whole season went by, collectively and individually. So it's kind of like you just can't let that repeat itself. You can't let the history repeat itself, and you got to constantly remind other people. I think I heard someone ask, how do you create that culture? You need to remind people of like what we've been through this season and what not to repeat on a daily basis in practice, in meetings, in games. It's not just we'll get it next time like we lost this or whatever. It's kind of like we need to keep everyone accountable and consistently remind that. And that's what I'm going to do personally, I'm going to attack this offseason the same way with the same energy that I have right now with how I'm feeling, how disappointed I am on this season. And I think that's going to come out. I'm going to come out on the better end of it for 2024.
Well, as the players finished the season out with another loss, they talked about what went wrong as far as not being able to finish games and having this feeling during the off season so that they won't repeat, Tony, this losing season and the feeling of not making the playoffs again.
Well, you know what I just think, instead of worrying about what they can do in the off season, they just need to keep a bag packed because they ain't going to be here anyway. They're going to clean this whole thing out. I want to ask somebody later on in the show, do we keep Eric Bieniemy here? But Big Zoe, let me ask you this. We got the two big guys in the middle. We kept them because we thought the ends were not the ones that were serviceable, but they turned out to be very good elsewhere. Do you get rid of one of those two big guys? They play the same kind of game. Or do you keep them in there and build that defensive line back around those guys again?
Well, to be honest, it all depends. If you can actually get something returned in value for either one of them, yes, it may be time to break that duo up just to give us something new. Because what we really need is we definitely need some pressure, definitely from the ends, but we definitely need a linebacker. My thing is this, even with them not giving us the pressure they needed up as far as our middle, as far as our defensive tackle and our nose, our linebackers is would not be able to protect the next level. So on a defensive level, if we do keep them together, I'm cool with that. But if we do get rid of one, I'm cool with it. But I definitely feel like we need to correct our linebacking. I mean, we haven't had a solid line, and I don't want to even think about the LeVar Arrington days, but we haven't had a solid linebacker core since then. And before I jump off, if I'm a GM, I'm not passing up a Jason Campbell.
Hello.
Him and Donna could talk about what they want. I was sitting in that classroom, and I'm dating myself now. I was sitting in that classroom like it was yesterday when they said, number 17 from Auburn. We were all excited that day. And I look at how the relationship was. JC did work. He could have had some pieces around him, but JC did work here. And I look at, we have to have a relationship like that again because we haven't had a solid relationship. But no, if I'm not passing up a JC. I know what they're saying, but JC to me is like the quarterbacks we're talking about now, as far as Penix or the other kid, Jay. I'm not passing on a JC if I have a chance.
I thought one thing, and now I'm jumping back and forth because, there's no sense in us talking about a game like they're going to have another game. This is the last game this group will ever play together. But as I look back, and I'm going to ask this question again because I think we got to give Terry all the credit we can, and you have done that. But at the same time, I thought that was pretty good class of them to make sure that he got that 1,000 yards. I think that was very good. That put a little bit of sweetness in the season, in the game. And Terry deserved that. And you know how that is. And Tell the fans how it is for a receiver to get to 1,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, that's unbelievable. Like, he's the first one that's done that 4 years in a row. I mean, not even myself or Art or Ricky ever did that. So, I mean, that's a huge deal. I mean, because, the 1,000 yards for a running back or a receiver, that's the ultimate thing that you shoot for each year. It's kind of like it allows you to say, like, I'm in that 1,000 yards. I mean, I'm so proud of that kid. He fights through adversity. He comes through. He never gives up. He's the type of guy the type of leader that we need more of on that football team.
Mm-hmm. And, speaking of leaders, and if we look at this, we might well throw the special teams in here. They got to also look, and that's when I'm talking about draft choices and stuff. They got to, every position on this team got to be evaluated. I'm looking at every starter. I'm breaking down the quarterbacks. I got 2. You can't go. You gone. I'm looking at offensive line. If you gave up 5 or 6 or 7 sacks, I don't need you to come back and show me that you're better, because you're not good enough to play on this team. If you're a defensive lineman and you got 1 sack out of maybe 90 chances, then you know what? You got to find another job or do something else. And we're all talking about now. You look at linebackers, and I know you're right about that, but Hutchinson, he came on at the end. I like the way he was playing. But our defensive backs, the young ones, showed me a lot more when they gave them a chance to play the last 2 or 3 games. So when you look at this, we can't be prejudiced with anybody, anything, no matter how long you've been there, you're number 1 draft choice. We got to look at production. And that's what I think is going to happen right here. And Alex, I'm like you. If you had to get 1 or 2, which quarterback would you keep?
Tony, I mean, the Caleb Williams guy, he does those Mahomes things or the Lamar Jackson things. Now, they didn't have a great year at USC. He was a Heisman candidate. He was probably the front runner 3 months ago. Well, he didn't end up the front runner at the end. So he's not perfect. Nobody is. But if he's sitting there, it's hard to pass up that sizzle. Okay? He might be the biggest bust in the history of pro football. You just never know. But it would be hard. If he was sitting there at 2, he may go 1. But if he's there at 2 and I had my choice, I know what I'm doing. Between Drake May and Caleb Williams, and they're supposed to be the top 2 of the top 4 of the top 50, I would go with Caleb Williams because of that thing he can do. Extend a play for what feels like 30 seconds back there and then throw a strike 40 yards down the field. He's got those skills that are, it when you see it. Does that mean he's going to be a great pro? No, you hope. You hope. I mean, you hope. There's, for everyone that works out that's taken 2 or 1 overall, there's a bunch of dudes that don't. Tom Brady was taken 199. That's all you need to know about this science of drafting. 6th round. Dude took his shirt off at the combine. Everybody laughed. He's the GOAT. So I don't know. Even the experts don't really know. But if you're asking me, and Caleb Williams is there, I would go with him. He would also bring so much even more excitement, kind of like RG3 did a little bit. I don't know, Tone. That's why they pay them the big bucks to pick these guys.
Caleb Williams is a head case, but Tony, you all are just talking about.
Whoa! Explain what you mean.
He's a head case, Tony. We don't need no more head cases here. We don't need more local guys here or any of those things, because Caleb Williams comes with baggage. And so I don't know if you want to add that to your team. You want to have a team where you don't have all this drama. We just already had dramas. But Tony, you all talked about who should they bring here personnel-wise as far as the players, who should stay and all that. But I think the more important thing is having the right coach here and the general manager to start that conversation and putting those pieces together. Because if you don't have the right coach and the general manager, none of that other stuff matters. Because think about how many coaches this Commanders team have let it go. That's in the playoffs this year, Tony. You got Green Bay, Matt LaFleur, could have been here. You got Mike McDaniels with the Dolphins, could have been here. Sean McVay, the Rams, and then Cal Shanahan with the 49ers. So Josh Allen said on Monday in his press conference, as far as the head coach of football operation, the head coach. So he's putting together this advisory committee, and to me, it's the way things should be, and it's great people, great minds, Tony, to start the conversation of making sure you bring the right person here, because that's what Josh Harris said. You've got to bring the right people here. So Mitch Rowlands is ownership. Irvin Magic Johnson, ownership. Dave Blitzer, NBA, Philadelphia 76ers, NFL, New Jersey Devils, among other businesses on that committee. And then Bob Myers, former American basketball executive, Tony, for general manager for the Golden State Warriors, Tony. He was twice named the NBA Executive of the Year, and during that time, 4 championships with the Golden State Warriors. And then you got Rick Spielman, executive, mostly with general manager for the Minnesota Vikings. So when you look together of how Josh Harris is trying to build this team, bringing in key minds, all winners, Tony, to bring the right coach here, that's key. And Tony, you always ask over the weeks, hey, Eric Bieniemy should be given an opportunity. Well, guess what? Josh Harris said, Tony, that he will be one of the guys interviewed for the head coaching job. We don't know if he's going to get it, but at least he'll be having the opportunity to possibly be a head coach for the Commanders, but we don't know who that's going to be.
Well, and I hope he gets that opportunity. It's like, they're talking new general manager and everything. And I don't think Martin Mayhew has done a bad job. You got to look at it. We talked about it last week. How many number 1 draft choices, or how many high draft choices, or how many players that Washington had that are with other teams that are starting there in the playoffs now. So he didn't do a bad job.
Tony, he wasn't here during that time that some of those players were here. I'm not saying get rid of Martin Mayhew, because his hands to me was tied because Ron Rivera was the general manager and Martin Mayhew was there to the side. So I don't know if Martin Mayhew got the opportunity to be a real general manager. So I don't know if they're keeping him either.
Well, you know what? I may disapprove what you say, but I'll defend to the death your right to say it. We're taking a break. We'll be back.
You need to take a break.
What's up?
One thing that's really something you have to think about. You look back at a couple of years ago, and a few of the teams, at least 4 or 5 of them, are in the playoffs now. They had 1 and 2 wins, and that was at the time when they were talking about Washington being one of the top 10 teams. Now you look at this, and here we go again. Washington's one of the bottom 3, and those teams are playing. I got to come to one of you guys. Y'all got to take Jason. What's going on, man? You've been in races to win and stuff. How do you do that? How do you come in being so highly rated and then you turn out to be one of the worst?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is you got to have that toughness. And what I mean by that is sometimes your team take on the approach of your head coach. And, nothing against Coach Rivera. He's one of the older school guys who's a great player when he played and, had a really good run when he was in Carolina. But, you just never really saw a whole bunch of energy, though. This is a new group of guys, this young group. Like, you got to energize these guys. You got to get them enthusiastic about going out there and playing. And for most parts, you see a lot of these teams, they have gone with offensive-minded head coaches. And I think a lot of that you see with Mike McCarthy going in Dallas, and they had the other offensive coordinator that was very pass happy. But what he did was neutralize his offense by getting back to running the football, taking a lot of pressure off Dak Prescott and putting him in a win-win situation. And you see how their offense is better now than it was over the last couple of years when they had Kellen Moore and everything. So the game is you still got to run the football. You still got to play in the trenches. You still got to have a tough mindset. And you got to have a good receiving core outside. And Washington has a good receiving core, but, they want to run the football, but they haven't been able to block strongly up front. So until you can get that fixed, and like you say, if you bring in a quarterback, you got to bring in an offensive coordinator that can meet that quarterback's strengths, though. You got to give that guy an opportunity to be successful with someone that's mindset is up on the new game and not stubborn enough to change.
And you know what, Donna, you take a look around the league and you've looked at it, and let's look at the changes. To me, I want you to give me the truth. Do you not think?
Give me the truth.
I don't know about that. If you think that's the truth, then you do. Man, I got some work to do. But if you look at it seems like Maryland, and I'm gonna call them Maryland now. They just gave the Steelers the opportunity to get into the playoffs. Do you not think that? Because they're a better team than that. They didn't play half their players. They didn't play their star quarterback, and they look just like the University of Maryland. That's why I call them that. And they let the Steelers get in. But now, don't you think, even with the Steelers getting in that way, they may be a dangerous team in the playoffs?
Yeah, Tony, but the Steelers, they look like they were dead in the water because of their quarterback situation. It seemed like every team went through quarterback problems this year, but Pittsburgh with Tomlin always finds a way, Tony, to win. But I think that Pittsburgh is coming in hurting on the defensive side of the ball because they lost some key players. But Pittsburgh in that division is always tough no matter what. And you well know, Tony and Gary and Jason, who played football, that regular season is the regular season. But when you come into the playoffs and some teams coming in are hot, Tony, are the Pittsburgh Steelers limping in? Or are they a team to be dangerous, to be really considered? And it just comes down to who you're going to be playing that week. They're going to be playing the Buffalo Bills, Tony, who are struggling themselves. You don't know which team is going to show up from week to week. In Buffalo right now, and it's hot. But on the offensive side of it, Tony, they're so inconsistent as far as the Bills, but they're playing at home, which is key. But who cares about that? Because both teams are used to playing in the cold.
Oh, but that's a different kind up there in Buffalo, Donna. I'm going to tell you that. I played 14 years in the league, and I don't think I ever won a game up there.
Well, let me just say this. Pittsburgh better hope so. But, Tony, I think it's going to come down to the quarterback play for both Pittsburgh and also Buffalo because Josh Allen, he's wishy-washy. Like I said, they're inconsistent, and they won that game, but it wasn't like it was like dominant. So, to me, that game is going to be quarterback play.
Well, Gary, let me go to you. Which game this may be wide receiver play. You got to look at Kansas City, how they're struggling. But you look at another team that I'm wondering about, and that one is Miami. They got a plethora of fast people, wide receivers and running backs. Their defense is okay. They got now what they do have, which you might as well bring it out right now. 3 of their defensive ends are hurt right now. They're outside rushers. That may hurt them big, but do they have enough offense where they can get through these playoffs? I'm kind of worried about them.
Well, I mean, Miami got enough offense. I mean, they definitely have enough offense. They're a great offensive team. But I'm never going to go against Kansas City in the playoffs. And the key is, how to get your players to play great. That's to come playoff time. My players have to play great, and people always come in, they blame ownership, they blame coaches. But when you win or lose, it's really up to the players, period. It's up to the players, especially once you get into the playoffs. We control that game. We know what we can do, what we can't do. We know what we need to change. I don't care what play's been called in. If I don't like to play, if the quarterback doesn't like to play, if the receivers don't like to play because we're into the game, we know what's going on, we're going to change the play. I hate when people blame owners, they blame coaches. My coaches is just there to give me a strategy. It's my job to take that strategy and make it work, period. It's just what it is. Like, perfect. I mean, Jason's a quarterback. He knows. Quarterback calls in the play. Coaches calls in the play, and it's not going to work. You've been seeing it the whole day. You've been getting hit on your can the whole day. He's going to change the play. He's not going to call that play. I want to get back to where the players make decisions because greatness comes from great players making great decisions, period. Let me
ask you this, Alex. Have we seen the best of Philadelphia?
Yeah.
It was about a year ago at this time, Tone. It was about a year ago now. They were the best team of football until they didn't win the Super Bowl. They looked like that team up until 6 weeks ago. We probably should have known when the Commanders gave them 2 insanely close games. And frankly, the Commanders beat them at Philly last year when they were undefeated. We should have known maybe something was up. I'm kind of kidding. But for whatever reason, Jalen Hurts, whether he's sort of hurt, and I think maybe he is, and injured because it's been a long season, they just look awful. I mean, they went to New York Sunday. This is a game that, listen, everybody thought Dallas was going to beat the Commanders and win the NFC. But if you're the Eagles, you better win that game just in case Dallas doesn't. Do you imagine losing to the Giants, have the Commanders upset Dallas and not winning because you couldn't beat the Giants? for the division, they look awful. Now, they're still dancing. Like survive and advance. They're in. There's a bunch of teams. There's 20 teams not in. And there's 12 teams in. 14 teams in. And they're one of them. They're going to go to Tampa, which is not exactly going to, Soldier Field in 85 to play the Bears, okay? Tampa may very well win that game, but the Eagles, if they can be some semblance of what they were 2 months ago and 3 months ago and 12 months ago, they can win a game and then they can go from there. But they look not good. You can only imagine the Philly fans and what Sports Talk Radio must sound like up there this week. But they're in. They're in. And last year they went to the Super Bowl. They know how to win playoff games.
Yeah, but they ain't lost 4 games in a row. And I tell you what, Solomon, who's your sleepers in this playoffs? I know it's got to be somebody you think is going to upset a lot of people.
Well, I'm still leaning towards the team that you said gave it up, the other Maryland, the team from Maryland. I'm still feeling like the Ravens is going to be pretty tough, but I'm actually telling people, and I was telling some of the Cowboy fans yesterday to watch out for the Green Bay Packers. They're so thinking that's an easy game for them. I feel like that kid Love is playing without a conscience right now, kind of like Steph Curry shooting the ball and just letting it go, and it's getting there. So it's a couple of teams that I'm looking at. But one thing I'm going to say, including Pittsburgh, the thing that I was just sitting back listening to everybody say, and I heard JC say it earlier, all these teams also have a chance because they have tough coaches. Every coach is pretty much remaining left as a back. Like Tomlinson, his team is beat up on both sides, but he's not, and he brings an attitude. And then sometimes if you're a hurt player and you see that your coach is bringing that dog, you want to bring it too. And that's one thing, like JC was saying, whoever we bring in here, we had to bring a coach in first in order before we even get a quarterback, because I'm looking at the playoffs, including the hard. They are all dog coaches, and their teams are ready to follow them. They're not coaches that you feel like is going to back off if the pressure comes. There's actually coaches that's taking the pressure and moving forward with it. So that's one thing I'm looking at, but I'm still going with that team from Maryland, Pascal. I just feel like on both ends of the ball, they're complete.
But I tell you what, they look like they're the best team right now. When we come back, we'll talk about a little bit around the playoffs and who we think is going to do what. But one thing we didn't mention, that quarterback at Kansas City, they may be bad, but Jason will tell us when we come back, he's always going to stand tall. We'll be back in a moment.
All right, guys, this is the workout that we're going to do today. Not me, but Don is going to do today. It's called my front room workout. And that's not the cardio weight workout, but it's going to be a cardio involved just a little bit. Down, up for 2 seconds. Down, up for 2 seconds. Don't hyperextend. Keep it right here. Then we're coming up, almost done. Come over here, upright row. Up to the chin. Back down. Up to the 10 for 2 seconds. Back down. Then come over here. For me, for the guys, I can do on one arm at a time. So come up, hold it, down, slow. Hold it, down, slow. Then on the second round, you do the other arm. Then we finish off, rear delts. Come this way, pull, keeping it straight. Keeping your torso straight and everything. Pull, then close. And that'll be the whole station. Doing that 4 times. Right there. Like that. Up. Hold. Right there. Good. Up. One more. All right. You can change that from the start. There you go. Up. 2 seconds. Yep. Excellent. 2 seconds, yes. Up, hold. Up, hold. All right. Yes. That's awesome. This is actually a hard exercise for me.
Really?
For my shoulders. My shoulders are kind of weak.
Well, another great fitness tip for Ricky Irvins as he whips us into shape in our last few shows of the season. So let's go around the NFL. It's playoff time, our favorite time. Jason, I'm coming right to you. Cleveland at Houston. Houston did everything possible to get tripped up in the middle of the season, but they won the division. Who do you see winning that? Because Cleveland comes in with the best defense probably in the NFL.
Yeah, defense wins championships, offense sells tickets, but Cleveland beat Houston a couple weeks ago, but they did not have CJ Stroud, and I think Houston may pull this one out in a tough one, in a close one, I mean.
Uh-oh. Okay, Tony, I'm coming to you. Miami all beat up right now, limping in, and although Gary said that you can never go against Kansas City. They're playing in Kansas City. Kansas City has not been the same, Tony, without Eric Bieniemy. How do you see this playing out, Tony?
I see Kansas City winning that game for the simple aspect. Miami has a decent defense, but they got three of their good people really hurt right now, so they don't have an outside rush. And you have a quarterback in Kansas City that he's going to make plays. I take Kansas City in that one.
Okay, Solomon, we already talked a little bit about Pittsburgh at Buffalo. Buffalo, this is their fifth straight time in the playoffs appearance. Experience, will it make a difference? Do you see Tomlin pulling this out, or is it Buffalo's chance to move on?
Well, like you said earlier, the injuries made, as much as Tomlin's a tough coach, his team is still hurt. And with that injury to TJ Watt and Allen being able to sit back there and not have pressure, I see actually the Bills taking this. I gotta give it up to my dad's boy from Wyoming. So I see the Bills taking this without TJ Watt being able to add that pressure.
Go Cowboy!
Okay, Alex, the Rams. You know, Sean McVay was wanting to quit a year ago. Now he's back with this team in the playoffs, and you got them going to Detroit. Opposite quarterbacks that used to be with the other team. Who wins this one? Is Detroit one of the best records in the NFL? First time in the playoffs since who knows when. How do you see this playing out?
Donna, this one's nuts. You're right about the quarterbacks. I mean, who would have thought that the two teams that swap these two quarterbacks, of course, Stafford goes out to LA, went to the Super Bowl a couple years ago. Now his first trip back to Detroit will be a playoff game. Their first home playoff game in like forever. Detroit, I'm assuming, will be favored. They're at home. That means something. I kind of feel like the Rams. I kind of feel like Stafford has kind of been there, done that. Doesn't mean Jared Goff's not a wonderful quarterback in the midst of a wonderful season. I kind of feel like the road team comes in with the experience from a couple of years ago. Sean McVay is a heck of an offensive mind. A fast track for either team, but in this case for LA coming into Detroit, weather obviously not a thing there. I'm going Rams with what I would assume would be an upset vis-a-vis what Vegas might think.
I don't even know if that's an upset, but Gary, I'm finishing up with you with the NFC East. You got the Eagles, who are all beat up. They've never been the same all season. Jalen Hurts, don't know if he's going to play because he's got that broken finger on his throwing hand. And Tampa Bay finds a way to get in there with one of your ex-teammates, Todd Bowles. Can Tampa Bay make the upset as far as the Eagles and send them packing early? Gary.
I think Tampa Bay has a good possibility of winning. It just depends on which Eagle team shows up, quite honestly. Is the Eagle team that we saw at the beginning of the season, or it's going to be the Eagle teams we've seen the last 4 weeks? But, hey, they're playing at Tampa Bay, so I typically go with the home team.
And also the Eagles are missing their wide receiver who got hurt, A.J. Brown. So not only their quarterback, but A.J. Brown. So, Tony, that's the playoff picture for the first week, and it's going to be some exciting ball. So back in your hands, Tony.
It's going to be wild, and I didn't know if the Brown is out, then the Eagles are in trouble. But at the same time, everybody plays now, and everybody tries to win. When we come back, we talk about everybody plays. We'll talk a little bit about the picks and see who's winning in that. We'll be right back.
In the Minute with Tony and Donna. You can catch them weekly on their podcast, and you could also subscribe to their YouTube channel, In the Minute. Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus Speakers Bureau offers you various opportunities to connect with former and current players along with Tony and the crew. For more information, go to redmagplus.com, Speakers Bureau.
One more thing.
39 years. Not many shows can claim a streak like that, but Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus sure can. Tony McGee, a burgundy and gold legend on the field and for decades now on the air, is once again excited to bring his one-of-a-kind program to his legion of fans across the Mid-Atlantic. How to last so long? By always delivering unique, insightful, entertaining, and oh yeah, fun, lots of fun, week in and week out. Tony's cast includes the legendary Gary Clark, the impeccable Donna Hopkins on the burgundy and gold beat for decades now, as well as icons from Washington football, past and present, not to mention the Pro Football Hall of Famers who flock to Tony's show year in and year out. There is not a show dedicated to football fans like this one, and the proof is in the almost 4 decades that Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus has been the go-to stop for fans who want content that only Tony and crew can deliver. This season promises to be yet another exciting one for the team, the league, the show, and its fans, and we want you to be a part of it. There are sponsorship opportunities to fit your business's goals, 30 and 60-second targeted commercial spots, weekly segments dedicated to promoting your brand, on-air guest opportunities for you to share your company's mission, and so on. We'd love to discuss tailoring a sponsorship program that is just right for you, both in scope and in cost. For sponsorship opportunities, call 703-282-0792 or email info@redmagplus.com. Be a part of this historic season on this historic show, Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus. 39 years and the millions of viewers over those years can't be wrong.
Well, as you can see, Gary got up on me on the pick, so I made a few bad choices, but don't worry, I'll be back this week. Speaking of being back, Jace, you do college football. Who's the national championship? Who's the champ?
I like this matchup. Michigan, 2 different football teams. Michigan's a physical football team. They like to run the ball and play off their defensive front. But Washington, they like to spread you out. And Michael Penix been through 4 ACL injuries. And I think this team has been they've been through a lot. So I think Washington pulls it out in a close one tonight.
Well, I'm going to close out there. I don't disagree. I'm from Battle Creek, Michigan, and we don't take no mess. We're going to tear it up. So when we come back next week, we'll talk about it, and we will be back next week. Because you know what? We still don't say goodbye. We say in the minute.
Well, great show today. And we're going to let John Butler, friend of the Tony McGee's Pro Football Plus TV show, take us out with some of his great hits.
Today